So we're going to start with David. Would you like to introduce your composition and talk a bit about yourself as well?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name's David Roach. My website is David John Roach, so I put my middle name in there so it's easier to find me on Google. So David John Roach. Yeah, I'm a Welsh composer. I live in Cambridge in the UK, and I've been composing as a job for about 3.5 years now, and it's good, living the dream. I think. Mainly, I write orchestral music, and that has been my main preoccupation for about 5 years, I think. I wrote pieces for the Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra, Brazilian National Orchestra, BBC National Orchestra of Wales. I have a commission coming up from the Vale of Glamorgan Festival for them. And I also have pieces being done in China and Italy for orchestra next month as well. So I mainly kind of do that sort of thing. But I also write music for guitar and ukulele, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I've gone for a different tack today to talk about those because they don't get enough love, I think. And yeah, they're interesting instruments and interesting pieces, and those instruments are ultra idiomatic, I think. And when you ask people to compose for guitar, I'm sure Tiffany knows more about this than me. Writing for the IGF, I think, at the minute. So I think that, whenever you go to compose for guitar, the number one complaint is, it's so confusing to write for, it's so difficult to write for. But I think just getting involved with the guitar a little bit is the number one way to kind of get around that, or at least it was for me anyway. That's why I write for it, is because I am a guitarist. So anyway, without whittering on anymore, I will play you my first piece. I'll play the piece first and then I'll talk about it a little bit. Or should I play both pieces and then talk about them both a little bit? Is there a preference?
As you wish, whatever is most convenient for you.
All right, I'll do them one at a time. Okay, so can everyone see the video on the screen? Okay, this piece is called The Harp of Wales. I didn't put my own Twitter handle on there, by the way. So that piece is The Harp of Wales. It's obviously for solo guitar. Some features of that piece of music that are common to my other music is that it's in a key. Oh no, what do we do about that? Well, I don't know, nothing really. I like writing music that's in a key. My kind of whole principle behind composing is I literally write what I like. I wrote very dense microtonal music for quite a long time. I got no problem with it, nothing at all. But I just don't think it's for me. I think music, that the sort of music that I write like that is for me. So that's my 2 cents on that. The piece itself was commissioned by the National Library of Wales. It was done in lockdown. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that that picture was also in the video, and so was that one. So it was literally in the show. I've got a different jumper on now. But yeah, it was a lockdown commission by the National Library of Wales to write a piece of music in response to a collection of items that the National Library of Wales had come into. One of those was a speech given by David Lloyd George about the usage of the Welsh language and Welsh identity. And the speech was given at the Eisteddfod, the National Eisteddfod in Wales, which is like a cultural festival around Welsh identity and Welsh language. And obviously I am Welsh, so this kind of spoke to me a little bit as well. Where I grew up, there was a lot of bands and a lot of guitar playing when I was a youngster, and that was kind of where I cut my teeth. I think that's become an increasingly common way into music now for a lot of people. So this was important in the piece of music to me because Welsh identity, music, guitar, all these things kind of rolling into one. I thought I would be able to make a kind of convincing musical response to that text. So in composing this piece, because I knew I was going to have to play it, I could do lots of stuff that I wouldn't reasonably ask people to do most of the time. And one of those is to put the guitar into a different tuning. So I have the guitar here. And normally guitars are E, A, D, G, B, E. But in this instance, I put it in D, A, D, G, A, D. Slightly out of tune. You can hear the guitar wincing at the fact it's been detuned already. When you detune a guitar, the tension of the strings in relation to the tension in the neck causes all sorts of appalling tuning problems that can be easily remedied, but they do have to be remedied unless you're kind of just doing it by yourself in a studio situation, which I was. Anyway, this tuning is also known as dadgad. That's the kind of shorthand for it. It's a folky tuning because it gives you a sort of a D sus4 chord straight off the bat, which is all very nice. It's hard to make that sound bad. You can just kind of hit the open strings and it sounds good. So this whole kind of feel of Welsh mountains, openness and airiness is easy to evoke just like through that kind of just messing around on it. You can kind of just get that sort of pastoral kind of sound almost. So that's what I was kind of going for with it. The other stipulation of the commission was that the music actually had to be based on this source material. So the phrase, "Why should we not sing?" is obviously the shape of the first melody. Why should we not sing? But I put a slide on the end of it, right? So we get this all the way through, and that little kernel is extrapolated through the entire piece. So yeah, I built that little bit of speech into the music, and that was kind of how the piece started out, really. This piece is also a tremolo study. Tremolo is a specific right-hand technique in guitar. It's quite a fun one, but what happens is you pluck with your thumb, and then you pluck with your ring finger, then your middle finger, then your index finger, or you pluck with your thumb, then your middle finger, and your index finger. Using just these 3 fingers is easier, so I'm going to do that one first. Whoops, I'll mess it up. I don't know if you can see that very well over the camera. Okay, so that starts with. You can then do it with the 4 fingers as well, which is the typical one. Okay, slightly more difficult, but once you get it, it's pretty easy to do. It's just about a consistency. One of the interesting things you can do with that, once you have the pattern of 3 and the pattern of 4, is obviously you can lay triplets against duplets, right? So what I do a lot in this piece is I will have the left hand playing in 4, and I'll have the right hand playing in 3, which is kind of fun, right? I'm going to try it now, but be warned, this might not go well. It's hard to make it really pronounced, but that is a 4 against the 3 there. Whoops, wrong note at the end. But that's the kind of general principle of that, is you have the 3 against the 4, and you decouple the right hand from the left hand. Again, that's something that's much more common in music that's way more avant-garde than mine, where you kind of decouple the hands and give them separate instructions. But this is my little play on that idea, my little bit of fun with that. Yeah, the other thing to talk about with this, I guess, is how it was actually composed. It was just composed at the guitar. No secret there. I just sat down with the instrument and I played until I was satisfied with the piece of music. That is not normally how I compose. I normally compose just straight into the sequencer, which I know is also sacrilegious to say. But I'm a really, really big believer in doing whatever you think is right for you and correct to your music. You know, I've been teaching for about 15 years, unbelievably. I'm not even that old, I like to think. I'm getting old though. But the number one problem with like composition stuff is exactly what I did, which is where people will turn up and they'll be pouring out every technique, and they'll be like, I've got to use all of these now, you know, every technique at once. And it's, you know, you're kind of like, do you like this sound? You know, do you enjoy listening to this? And or is it moving to you? Is it important to you? And I think those questions are central to it. So for me, playing the guitar and writing at the guitar is important to me. And writing into the sequencer rather than writing on paper is the path of least resistance to me. The argument you often get, I think, is that writing on paper means you use your brain more, which I really don't believe. I think if you don't know what the lowest note on a trombone is, you don't know what the lowest note on a trombone is. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to do it on a computer or a piece of paper. You still don't know what it is. So I think that the issues that often come with that are prior to actually writing up a piece of music. So yeah, once I'd composed it at the guitar, I left it for a week, and then I came back to it and just noodled again. I find that the best things happen in a piece of music when I've had time to think about them and make subtle changes to it. The biggest sort of complaint I get with the Harp of Wales is that it's all in D all the way through, and some people are really affronted by that. But the thing I like about it is that it does stay in that, and it has very small changes. So like that 4 against 3 and then later 3 against 4, I think for me, I enjoy hearing that. And now I know it's there because I wrote it. I listen to that and I go, oh, you know, sort of enjoy that happening. So yeah, composed at the guitar, revised again, and just up until the deadline. I think deadlines are a really good pressure point of completing things. You know, people say, when is a piece of music complete? And it's when the deadline happens, I think. Before I show the next piece, I recently wrote an orchestral piece, and I had more time because of the pandemic to complete it than I thought. And I used all of that time doing basically like minute checks for that entire time. I was like, you know, literally going through the score back to front. The result was so similar to what I had 9 months prior to that. You know, it's like whatever time you give me, I'm going to use, you know. Anyway, I'm going to show a second piece now. This second piece is again a tremolo piece, but it is for ukulele, a much maligned instrument, perhaps. I mean, obviously the ukulele has roots in countries outside the UK, you know, like Hawaii and Portugal and things like that. There's a researcher called Samantha Muir who's doing a PhD at Surrey on the ukulele, and she is a complete and utter virtuoso of the instrument, and also you know, an academic who knows everything there is to know about that instrument. And yeah, through that person, I discovered an awful lot about the ukulele. As I said, I'm a teacher, and I teach a lot of ukulele too. Aside from it being like an introductory instrument for students, I think it's something that is becoming more popular. So I don't know, there's all these things happening, but it's becoming more popular. There are a lot of people playing it. It needs more music. It needs people to write rigorous music for it, because that's obviously an issue. If you only have beginner music, you're stumped. You've got to have other things. And now we do have people studying ukulele at degree level and holding professorships in the ukulele. Giovanni Albini holds a professorship in the ukulele. He's an extremely skilled player, and Matthew Quilliam is just completing his undergraduate degree in ukulele performance, I think. So, which is, you know, the times are changing, which is good. Anyway, I'll play you this piece. It's called In Every Heart. Good performance there from Sam. Super unreasonably difficult piece to give to someone to play, I think, as well. But yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Have I got enough time just to say a couple of things about it?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird instrument to write for the ukulele because the range is so small that you've got to be really careful not to exceed the kind of feeling of a section really immediately. Especially I think in like tonal music where expectations about what stuff is going to happen are really strong. You know, you can really run out of rope quite quick, I think. But anyway, that's Samantha Muir playing that. She's a fantastic player. The whole piece was based on the opening of a Billy Joel song. I'm not a big Billy Joel fan, and I didn't know that Billy Joel wrote the song And So It Goes. I thought it was a Tommy Emmanuel song for guitar, but I was really shocked to find out it was a Billy Joel song. Anyway, the first 4 notes are the open strings of a ukulele. Yeah, in every heart there's a, that one. So I was kind of freaking out about that those two things were happening at the same time. I was sat in front of the TV with my ukulele and all the notes were the same, and I was like, oh. So I thought I'd make a piece of music out of that. It shares similarity with the harp of Wales in that that's kind of like an open tuning, a comfortable C major, A minor, diatonic feeling, open tuning. That makes it really easy for things like tremolo, as long as you stick to that one key, because it gives you a lot of options with open strings. It makes you much more nimble on the instrument, and it makes it really forgiving to move around, which sound like ways around a problem, but they're actually kind of just really helpful ways of using the instrument. Like guitar does use, or ukulele does use open strings all the time. That's how you get around the instrument, you know? Even to the point where in examination materials now, they've started writing famous guitar pieces, mistakes into the scores. You know, like where someone will be like down here and then make a big jump, but they'll play an open string that's a note that's definitely not in the key. But you still need to play that just to kind of get that authentic movement and sound, you know. So yeah, the open strings are really important. Again, as well, it uses that 3 versus 4 thing that happens a lot with the right hand doing all that kind of movement against the three note tremolos in the right hand. And also, this was another piece of music that I composed at the ukulele. What I like about this method of composition is that it's just very, very simple and very, very straightforward. And it's a good exercise in just being really restrained and really careful with small melodic cells. I think that the desire often with a piece of music is to do more and 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 put more things in it. But often for me, what makes something really exciting is just the kind of precision and how slender the piece of music is. I think as well, especially with tremolo, you've got to be really careful with the placement of the melodic material on the instrument. It's got to be in a register that can speak. It's got to be in a register that you can play in a projecting way, because otherwise it's just going to make it irritating for the performer and they're just not going to want to do it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of considerations around that with it. The last thing to say is, yeah, just that these are particularly kind of melodic and tonal works for me. So that's a slightly unusual twist on them. I would say most of my music is kind of much more rhythmic and really, really intensely energetic. But these are kind of more melodic and an open-ended side of it. I think the biggest criticism they always get is the fact they are in a key, which is, to me, just confusing. You know, I think like academically, that's the biggest criticism they get is keys. You know, have you ever thought about not writing in a key? You know, but as I said earlier, I have no preference in that regard, really. I just like writing like this. Nothing is off the table, and my 2 cents in that is that everyone should just be doing what they really, really want to do and writing what they really, really want to write. And anything other than that does a disservice to the performers, the audience, or anyone you would care about hearing your music. So yeah, do what you want. That's the I'll say moral. There we go. Yeah. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the pieces. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was really lovely. I'd like to now open out to everyone else. If anyone has any questions for John, for David, please do feel free to ask. I can't really see if anyone's... Any questions? Anyone?
Cold silence.
Feel free to just unmute yourself if you like.
If nobody has a question, I have a question. Thank you, David. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And the point you said about the time and deadline and how fast you are writing, or it depends on the it was so interesting, because that's the thing I'm usually thinking of that. And David and I were in the Lithuania for like 10 days in a master class. It was composition residency actually. And then I saw how he fast wrote the piece. And I was like, oh no, how you do that? So could you just say a bit about the timing and these things?
Yeah, sure. I mean, fast doesn't always mean good though, right? You know, I think the piece you wrote in our residency was, I don't know, I don't know whether I should say the phrase better than mine on a recording. But in terms of writing quickly, I do think it is a real skill, and I think there is. I was taught that there was a mindset that you can't write something good quickly, and it wasn't until years after a tutor had said that to me when I was about 19 that I had someone just say the complete opposite, and it was a complete light bulb moment for me. I did the Dvorak competition in Prague for 3 years in a row, and the first year I went there, someone said, "Oh, you can't really write a good piece in a week." And I was like, well, I don't know, you know, like I'm usually working, like I was working a part-time job and all this kind of stuff at the time. And I thought, well, I've got a week off, so I'm going to give it a go, you know. When I'm at home, I'm usually coming home really tired after work, like working late into the night, trying to scrape together a piece of music at that point. And after I did that competition the first time, I thought, no, actually, I think I can write something that is good in a week. I think the next step after that is that what can you do to that piece that you wrote quickly to make it even better? Are there things you can do beyond that? And I think the more time you do spend on a piece, as long as you are actually working on it, then you're probably going to improve it, right? The piece I wrote in the final year of that Dvorak competition, I wrote in 5 days. And that was the piece that ended up being in the Takamitsu Award in January for me. And it was really irritating in a way, because I'd spent months on all these other pieces that had just like fallen flat in every competition. But the one I'd written in 5 days was the one that, that like won me enough prize money to like quit my job and all that kind of stuff and like pay off some debts. It was really annoying, but I was glad. But you know, it's yeah, I think writing quickly is a big skill. And honestly, I don't know. I don't think there's ever going to be a time for most composers, myself included, where you have, you know, someone says to you, here's £150,000, please take 4 years to write me a 50-minute orchestral piece, you know, and here's a chateau to live in with free food the whole time. You know, it's always going to be some sort of hideous time pressure or some enormously disruptive personal problem that's going to just rip everything apart. So, you know, you got to kind of try and work around that the best you can, I reckon. And yeah, I'm sure you can.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
And thank you for asking the question.
I also have a question actually, about the technique that you use in harp, like the 3s and 4 fingers. I found that fascinating, and I actually found it interesting how like this, even the second one that you played sounded really like a harp, like really so much like a harp. And I was just wondering whether you have some kind of insight into like harp technique, and whether you use that kind of insight in the way you compose for this as well.
I've written a couple of pieces for harp in the past, but I think my harp writing is kind of like bad piano writing, which I think is what harpists complain about a lot as well. It's so I try to be quite careful with it. Always give it to a performer before I give it off to the actual person who's commissioned it and all that kind of stuff. But I think honestly, my playing for guitar comes from just a long time sat in front of it as a kid. The tremolo playing, when I studied for my undergraduate, I studied as an electric guitarist. I was told by my teacher at the time that I could only do 2/3 of my recital on electric guitar, and I had to do 1/3 on acoustic guitar, an instrument that I not only didn't play but didn't own. So the piece I learned was the tremolo piece, and here we are today, right? It kind of grew out of all of that, I think. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if I had had an open mind earlier on, maybe there are other things I would have written too that I also loved. So, so yeah, I think it's also a very electric guitar style technique. I think with electric guitarists, I'll sit down and practice to a metronome for like 8 hours a day. There was always this Steve Vai 10-hour practice routine. There was guitar magazines when I was a kid, and I was like, no, if I want to be good, I got to do that. So when someone gave me this tremolo stuff on guitar, and the teacher was like, all you got to do is just sit down for like 4 hours a day and play it. I just sort of thought, oh, easy, okay, I can do that. And I just did, and eventually it sort of stuck. And it's really hard to forget those things, which is often what people complain about with writing at an instrument as well, actually, is that you can't get away from the way you play it. You know what I mean? And I can understand that. And, there's that really great lecture that Rebecca Saunders did at IRCAM, where she talks about like rediscovering the piano as she composes for it. And I think that's a really fascinating way to approach instruments. But for something like guitar, I feel like I get in my own way so much. I can only write the things my hands want to do on it a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I still need to be. Sorry, go on.
So the inspiration for that piece, there wasn't any harp inspiration at all. Then it was more really just guitar.
Yeah, almost entirely. I think
Fascinating.
Lloyd George described, I think it was the singing as the harp of Wales, and for me, the connection with that is that the sound of Wales for me is the rock music I grew up with. I grew up in a kind of poor, deindustrialized part of South Wales, and the only things that really gave you a sense of self-worth, voice, and identity were the rock bands that were singing about like the closures of the mines and all this kind of stuff. They were the only people that kind of reflected the problems of the area. So that's the only music we really identified with as kids was that, so and it is something that like is still with me now. Even things like the Manic Street Preachers are probably the most famous band of that type. They have an album called The Holy Bible, and if you haven't heard it, Manic Street Preachers, The Holy Bible, you should go and listen to the whole thing start to end. It is the greatest Welsh album ever made. I actually wrote an article about how it was the best Welsh album ever made, but it really speaks to that sensibility of disenfranchised, poor, working class people from South Wales. And yeah, that's kind of where that kind of comes from for me, that feeling of importance towards the guitar. That was a better answer. That was a good one.
Amazing. I also had a question about the tuning system, which I find absolutely fascinating. Is this something you explored in other compositions as well? And like, how does it influence the way you compose, like from the start? Is it like very intuitive, or do you plan something in advance, like based on the structure that you have?
Almost entirely intuition. I used to be a big planner, but I'm not so much a big planner anymore. I mean, when I was writing microtonal music, the guitar is great for that because you can do absolutely wild stuff on it. If you put thicker gauge strings on an electric guitar, so the tension is higher, they'll hold a pitch better. And then you can tune them all in microtonal tunings. So you could have, if you tune the one E a quarter tone sharp on a guitar, you have an E that is, to A440, and then an E that is slightly sharp, and that gives you 24 tone equal temperament between those two chords. Then there are also loads of double note and triple note harmonics that you can get on an electric guitar. So you can get like 8, if you really try, and I mean really try, you can get like 18 note chords on guitar. They are like total mush, but if you find the right harmonics, you can get them. And I used to write all sorts of music like that and try to play it. But for me, what didn't work there was I didn't have a way to implement them in a way that I felt was meaningful or personal to me. So yeah, you know, like I grew up playing power chords in bands and things like that. So my music reflects that, because that's the kind of thing that I really love. I respect the other types of music that are out there, and I enjoy finding those sounds on instruments myself. I do think it is wild that you can create 18 notes on a 6-string instrument, but you know, I don't think that I have as many useful places to implement that in my music. You can do like loads of cool stuff with it. You can make like interval cycles. It's like I'm going to get this wrong, and this is recorded, so I'm sorry if I get this wrong, but I think it's like a perfect fourth and a quarter sharp. If you move by that, if you move in a cycle of that interval over and over again, you get like a 24 tone cycle of fourths, and like you could do that on the instrument. So like I used to really like exploiting those properties to exhaust denser and denser chromatic fields on the guitar. But that music is extremely dense, and you know, the polar opposite of what I'm writing now is such a cliche, right? You write really, really atonal, dense, I don't like the word atonal, right? Really, really out there microtonal music for 5 years, and then one morning you wake up and you think, oh, what's F major like? You know. So anyway, that was a very long answer, sorry.
Lovely. Thanks so much. That was really, really fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think we need to move on.
Thank you.
Over to you, Justin.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you for having me. It's so amazing to listen to all of your music. I already feel inspired, and I think it's amazing to be part of the composers community, because we can learn so much from each other. Like, for example, I use very similar like violin sounds, what I heard today. Also, like I struggle with the idea that if I write fast, maybe there's something wrong with me, because you're kind of supposed to struggle, or your music must be like always very conceptual and etc. And sometimes like I write quickly and I feel guilty that like I wrote something. And I also had actually I wrote a piece in 5 days and it won a contest, and I felt guilty. How come I can win with something what I wrote in 5 days? So it was just really nice to hear, you know, like all of your experiences. Like I learned that there's nothing wrong with me. We all go through the same things. Anyway, it's kind of late for me, so I will try to be quick. So I'm Justina. I was born in Lithuania. Originally I was a violin player, and at some point I switched to musicology and composition, and I left and I did my studies in the Netherlands. I'm the Hague student, and also studied in Amsterdam. And then I did kind of crazy thing. I moved to Ecuador, where I lived for 4 years. So contemporary music in Ecuador, this is like the whole of our topic. But today I would like to share one piece of mine. So I work a lot with video and photography, and I'm very visual. So today we're gonna see piece. It's kind of longish. It's around like 13 minutes, but maybe we can skip the 5th part, for example, and just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to the 6th one. We can save a little bit of time. So the piece is interesting because it works. It has lots of different versions. What does it mean? Like what you're gonna see now, it was an installation in Vilnius, in my hometown, Lithuania, as installation. This piece also has 2 other versions, which I perform live. So what you're gonna hear now, every single sound is performed by me. Recorded, mixed with that, I kind of need help, but basically everything is me. The text you're gonna see and etc. video material, like I do all the editing. So everything what you see, it's 100% my work, except sound mixing. So the piece is called Donde hace calor todavía busco nieve, which it's in Spanish. And in English, it means where it's still warm, where it's warm, I'm still looking for snow. So when I moved to Ecuador, like for me, it was like absolute huge culture shock. And I always kept looking for things I can feel related to, but I couldn't find, because the culture, language, people, it was lovely, but like I couldn't fit in. Even like me walking on the street there, like visually I was too tall, too blonde, and obviously not from there, which draw a lot of attention, which I didn't enjoy. Anyway, so, and I learned Spanish. So at some point I felt very confused. I lived in the Netherlands, so I kind of consider myself a little bit of Dutch. Like I have some things with the like Dutch culture, like tiny elements. Then I'm Lithuanian because I grew up there. And then suddenly I speak Spanish and I'm being all Latin. And I found that I always think in like 3 languages. My Lithuanian language is awful at this moment. In English, I'm not a native speaker, but that's my language. Like this is, even if I make mistakes, that's my language. Like if I need to talk about composition, life, feelings, I don't know, concepts, I go for English. And then Spanish. Also, like I speak well enough, but I kind of feel weird because for a long time I couldn't make jokes in Spanish. And for me to feel really comfortable, like I need to make a joke. So this is kind of like the more optimistic part of the like introduction to the piece. But basically, this piece explores the idea of not fitting in, being a bit lost, always missing your home. And what is home? Like I don't have, like I moved back to Lithuania actually, like after 11 years. And in theory, that's my home. Like I live 5 minutes from my parents. I have my own place, but like I'm like hometown, home neighborhood, everything, but I do not feel at home. So those 11 years living abroad kind of messed me up. So this piece explores that everything what you see, it's or filmed in Lithuania or Ecuador, and you're gonna hear like 3 languages, so it's always kind of layered. I think that's enough of the introduction, and maybe we can just listen to the piece, and then let's try to skip, or yeah, let's see with the timing, okay? Because I would like to, yeah, let's go and listen. Is it working, Eleonora? Because she's supposed to help me out with sharing the. Yes, okay, all good.
žiūriu viršų į apačią, aš ieškau kažko pažįstamo, atpažįstamo. Aš ieškau kažko pažįstamo, atpažįstamo. Aš ieškau kažko pažįstamo, atpažįstamo. Kažko, kažkieno, kažko, kažkieno, kažko, kažkieno, kažko, kažkieno. Saulės blyksnis, saulės blyksnis, saulės blyksnis, saulės blyksnis. Pažiūrėk, mira praeitį, dabartį, ateitį. Pažiūrėk, mira praeitį, dabartį, ateitį. Pažiūrėk, mira praeitį, dabartį, ateitį. Garsai, kvapai, pasiūlymai. Garsai, kvapai, prisilietimai. Garsai, kvapai, prisilietimai. Garsai, kvapai, prisilietimai. Garsai, kvapai, prisilietimai. Paprastai nepaprasta. Paprastai nepaprasta. Paprastai nepaprasta. Paprastai nepaprasta. Paprastai nepaprasta.
should we play the last part, or
Maybe you can move a little bit that we could see maybe just teensy weensy of the fifth part and then go to the last one, because the last one we should see it, if that's fine with everyone and timing.
that's fine. There.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
A ver, así como lo escuchas, tenemos un tío completo, ¿no? Una cuatro,
Thank you. So this piece was shown here in Lithuania and also in Ecuador. And what is the most amazing thing that it's a lot of people could relate. You can't imagine that Ecuador, yes, there's a contemporary music scene, but the language I'm using, for me, it's very mild. For them, it's kind of really contemporary. But besides that, the message reached them. Like all of us, we moved homes, we moved cities, countries, I don't know, professions. Like you always move, you always leave something, and you miss that. So despite culture differences or language, like lots of things, people were relating to the piece. And what I loved about being in Ecuador, like I work with ensemble who they try to bring contemporary classical music to people who usually don't have access to it. So we're talking about people who are hearing the music, maybe like classical or academic music for the first time. And it doesn't matter. Like the idea managed to reach them. And for me, that's the most important thing. I work from intuition. I don't count, I feel it. For me, I just know that it has to be there, that sound. I need that image. That's it. Like I don't do math. My math is my intuition. And I used to have problem with that, or I thought I have a problem, because you're supposed to be all logical and conceptual, etc. But I realized that I can reach that level of conceptualism I want using my intuition, because I do feel time, like there's a balance in the end. But if you ask me to count, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. And I think I don't care even, but in a good way. So with everything what I write, for me, it's the most important thing that it would reach others. Like my music always has the idea behind. Yes, I like all of us would try different techniques, forms, I don't know, like mediums and etc. But my priority is always I'm telling something. And this piece, I think one is the most important for me because it's so personal. It's hard to watch for myself actually. And when my mom watched, she cried because like she in a way lost her daughter for 11 years. And then when she saw the piece, like it really affected. Or had another friend, like really good friend of mine. She's a jazz singer and like she knows my music, but I think I just sent like a video, just like we watch now, because she lives in Belgium. And her comment was, I didn't know that it was so bad for you in Ecuador until I saw the piece. I didn't know that you struggle that much. Because I did struggle. I mean, it's a life experience, but I did struggle. So yeah, so you saw probably one of the most important, or like it's very dear piece for me. It's very honest, it's very naked. Like I'm telling all my secrets basically, or my journey of the last 11 years. So if you have any comments or questions, I would be happy to answer. Or just comments. I don't know if let's share.
I loved it. Thank you so much, dear Justina. I absolutely sympathize with it. I totally, and the process of, it was very interesting to me that visually at the end, that blurry like feeling of the image of the video, it became clear. And I was thinking like how much of brokenness happens in this process of change, going from blurriness, blurry to this clarity, and then how much of this process of assimilation, how much of cutting has been happening. And suddenly, like, we didn't hear, it was just the sound of the city. We didn't hear the instrument or the voice, the body. It was there. It was that home, or that new host home, or whatever that it was there. And then the clarity, it just made me think so much. I really enjoyed it. Is it available anywhere that we can watch it? Or?
Yes, I can actually type in my website, and everything is there. So the last part, so what you saw, the snowing, it's the view from my parents' home.
It's a Lithuania, right?
Yes, it's Lithuania. It's my parents. This is the place I grew up. And the blurry was Quito, which is capital of Ecuador, like historical center, which is not the safest place, for example, and etc. But it has the beautiful colonial like architecture, etc. And it's very busy. So we have that soundtrack of just a city, but it's blurred. Yeah, so I work a lot with using something sharp and then exaggerate and something blurry. Like I work a lot with photography, and it's also one of the elements I very often I explore, or like I focus like on purpose in the wrong way, or blur things in order to lose shape, or just kind of blend things. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just actually thinking that's something that really does seem to connect your piece with Bahaz a bit, in a way. That sort of shift between kind of clarity and sort of fragmentation, which is, it's really amazing that we have these two pieces together.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. And the fragmentation, yeah, because my personal experience, like I felt that I was kind of taken apart, like I broke in a way, and I needed like construct myself once again in a very different kind of like culture environment. And yeah, so you kind of have to put yourself together. But like I said, like I'm a bit Dutch, I'm a bit Lithuanian, I'm a bit Latin now. Like it's, but I am fragmented, and there's some parts of me which is still blurry. I'm still trying to figure out. And some things like I'm very certain because like I'm a bit older now, and I know that okay, doesn't matter where I move, this is how I do these things, and this is what I like, and this is what I don't like. So like I think we all have those, like we're constantly in the process of like clearing something and then being sure about something, and you just go through life with those sharp, blurry, or two at the same time.
Thank you, Justina. I really felt the feeling of this kind of immigration, being in these different places. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, like we all had some kind of experience like that, and we can all relate. It really, like everyone. And I think like sometimes we maybe even feel kind of ashamed to feel like or nostalgic or sentimental, like you're supposed to let go and move on. It's so great to live abroad, and like yes, but you pay the price. Like I'm really happy that I had a chance to live abroad and now I'm back, but I paid a price. Like, and it was expensive.
So I think we got run out of the time.
I'll just wrap up. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So thanks to all the composers that joined us today. This has been an absolutely phenomenal experience. Really, I enjoyed it so much. It was an absolute pleasure and honour to hear from you. Thanks also to all the performers that played in these works and everyone that joined us in support of the forum. So coming up, our next forum will be on the 3rd of October. We're still arranging the programme and we welcome everyone to get involved. So if you have a composition or a project you'd like to share with us, please do get in touch. Just send us a recording of your work and we'll establish the best way to programme it alongside other works we receive over the next couple of months. So you can visit our website avazad.com/forum, and there's you can find the calendar there, and then you can message us about what dates are good or bad for you using that. So lastly, if you have any feedback about your experience this evening, please get in touch. Our email address is atafeliora@gmail.com. So Atafe, could you write that out? Could you make a note of that? And also if you could type in the avazad.com/fusion forum, yeah, that would be great. And then people can send us stuff. So we would appreciate it if you would share this forum with friends and family, because it helps us to widen the audience that we reach and give our composers a greater exposure, because that's basically what it's all about. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month on Sunday, the 3rd of October. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think there's a typo in that. Shall I write it again? It's @gmail.com, but yeah. We'll save the chat as well, and if you're interested in finding out anything more about the composers as well, we'll be sending out a newsletter with people's links to their profiles, so you can find out more about them that way as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.